Hey everyone, Commander Shipp here, and I'm going to talk to you about Wonder Woman 1984, directed by Patty Jenkins, starring Gal Gadot, Pedro Pascal, and Kristin Wiig, in her first villain appearance. And spoiler alert, she does a pretty darn good job. But let's talk a little background for Wonder Woman before we even get to this. So, it was supposed to be a summer blockbuster. Me and Tom, if you've watched the Commander Ship show, we've been saddened every time it kept getting pushed back. I'm sad Dune's going to be next year. Tenet didn't hold to what I wanted, but our hearts were still like, Wonder Woman 1984, that's going to be the one that we're going to hold our hearts out for. And the date stuck, and they finally got it out. And I'm not going to hold any of the HBO Max things against it. That's not the movie's fault. So we'll talk about Warner Brothers HBO in another show. And you've heard me talk about it in the lead up to this, decisions that have been made. But this movie by itself, fantastic. If you have the account, be safe. If you have an HBO account, be safe. Go watch it there. I know you want the movie experience, unless you can, and I've said this on the show, unless you can rent out the theater, which some of them are doing, to let you and your friends and family watch it spaced out. That's the only way right now with the surge going on that I even give as advice. I'm not recommending. That's not a recommendation for how. And I need to say from the onset that as much as I love the first Wonder Woman, there was a promise that was happening inside that movie that they didn't stick at the ending. And Patty Jenkins has recently come out and talked about the Warner Brothers execs and things they wanted her to change for the ending. And that has always been my biggest gripe with Wonder Woman. And knowing that those details now of there's a way they wanted to end that and they weren't allowed to. And we'll get into more details. I'll do another video and talk about that. Because everything in the first Wonder Woman is trending to not be a stereotypical superhero movie, and then it kind of goes back towards the basics at the end. 1984 does not have that problem whatsoever. Is there still a big fight at the end? Yeah. Cheetah needed to get some aggression out, which we'll talk about in just a moment. But the resolution isn't fisticuffs. It's not who's got the bigger sword, who's activated a new power. We do get to see the Golden Eagle armor, which was amazing, but that's not what wins the day. That's helping a beat up Diana that's spent quite a bit of her energy late into the movie. So there's at least a tactical reason why she's wearing it. But that's not how it ends. I was super appreciative, and I'll get into more detail on this. I'll lead back. I'm going to circle back to this point. But just from the onset, I loved the resolution not being I need to beat you. It's like I want to convince you of what's right. I want you to see the truth. So why do I bring that up? Because that's where the movie starts off. We don't get a big action set sequence. It's really just more of a competition of strength with the other Amazonians, some kind of yearly tradition. Diana's participating at a very young age, maybe around 6 or 7, and is doing very well in the competition until she gets knocked off her horse. In which case she, rather than they're got bows and arrows and need to hit a check mark each time they're going along on this relay, or not relay, but on this race, she skips one of them to take a shortcut. And Robin Wright's character, I love this, just as she's getting ready to throw the last javelin and to be the winner, be the first place, and because they're keeping score, they can see that she hasn't hit that last checkpoint that she needed to do. She's getting ready to chuck it, and Robin Wright Antipolo just picks her up. It's like, no, no, ma'am, we are not doing that. You are not going to cheat, not on my watch. Diana is upset, but it also just speaks to the people around her, the people that support her and love her, want to make sure she's going on the right path, and they're using this as a very good teaching moment, and it serves her well going into the rest of this film, and then the ending when she's going up against Maxwell Lord. So, if you haven't guessed already, I think we said spoilers in the beginning, but you should know if you're watching a review for Wonder Woman. I don't tend to really do spoiler-free reviews on this channel, so just a reminder. So when we get into this next piece, it is the 80s. Diana is living in Washington, working at the Smithsonian, joined by her coworker Kristin Wiig, who's just new to the museum, and they come across a new artifact left by one of the gods, kind of like a Loki trickster sort of way. Not saying it's Loki, but just kind of in that way of it's an object that will give you whatever you want or give you what you wish, but it comes at a cost. Diana ends up wishing back Steve Trevor, which is how we get him back into the film, because that was kind of speculation there for a bit. Like, how is he coming back into this? Kristin Wiig, being the unconfident historian or gemologist, actually, I apologize, gemologist, on the scene, wishes to be more like Diana, which, not knowing who she is yet, that ends up being a really cool as she starts to understand that she's gaining powers. So that was actually really good. And then Maxwell Lord, played by Pedro, is looking to get the object. He had paid for it on the black market and wants to use it to imbue his company with more wealth, get more. He does the classic more wishes that you always think he would do as a genie if he got the lamp, except he turns himself into. This is actually kind of a very clever twist on the genie problem of, like, how would you get more wishes? Well, he turns himself into the genie, effectively. He turns himself into the stone that's or the MacGuffin in this case for the movie. And you'd be like, that doesn't seem very good. We know how that ends in Aladdin. Jafar gets crammed down to, well, he's using it to, this is the rules of how this works. He's able to use it to get other people to make the wishes that he wants, and then he's basically bartering what he's taking from them. It's gonna take you a second to figure out what the rule, like, all right, how do these rules work? But they, trust me, like, from at least from my viewing, I'm like, okay, this tracks. Like, I don't see that they really have gone back on themselves doing this, and it works. It works as a really great plot device. We were talking on the show about a difference between Marvel and DC, and Wonder Woman did exactly what we thought they would. Is that there are bits that are funny, like there's the thing you see in the trailers where he's trying on different 80s clothes. That's still there. It's a little more expanded in the movie, and it's hilarious. But the movie's not trying to be funny the entire time. It's not cracking off one-liners the entire time. And even Steve, being transported to the 80s, it's fun just watching Chris Pine react to the 80s. Someone from the 1910s, 1920s just reacting to the 80s. Like, it's fantastic. Like, the trash can joke that you've seen in the commercials was hilarious. And then in real time, there's a moment where they steal a jet, or in the process of stealing a jet, and my brain is immediately going to, like, well, are other fighters going to scramble to stop them? Well, how are you going to sneak off of a jet? There's going to be, like, radar and stuff detecting you. And even though Steve doesn't know all of this yet, Diana's wheels are also turning, answering those questions for you as the audience member in real time. I'm like, I forgot. They'll, because Steve's talking about, yeah, once we get in the air, they'll never be able to catch me. And she's like, well, there's radar. And he's like, they actually might, and they might scream. He's just like, well, shit, Diana. And it's just 3 words, but it's like the best timed 3 words. It just had me bawling. It's a really good moment between them. And it leads to the invisible jet. Diana says she'd been practicing trying to make things go invisible by thinking about how her father would have hidden Themyscira. So she had practiced before and apparently had lost her coffee cup. Which is kind of a nice, like, oh, yeah, that's how you could lose a coffee cup, aside from just a normal human being losing a coffee cup. And then it proceeds to turn the jet invisible in the nick of time. Now, some people might get annoyed by that. I think it's a fun piece of fan service, and also, like, again, because I was having those questions, like, how are you gonna get out of this? And then Trevor and her banter answering that in real time. I just think it was a very effective moment. So kudos, Patty. I liked it. It was really. They just kind of, like, they get right back into the relationship in the movie in a really organic way. It wasn't like, there's the time adjustment of what's going on, but I mean, these two as a part, Gal and Gal Gadot and Chris Pine as a partnership in this movie is fantastic. Along with Kristen Wiig and Gal Gadot as a partnership in this movie for a little bit, because they don't start the movie off as antagonists. They're working together to learn more about the stone. There are different desires of what start to separate them. Even though they both have made a wish on the stone, their desires of what separate them off in different paths. And particularly because Kristen Wiig, what she wished for, what was taken from her by the stone, was some of the things that made her what she is, her compassion and integrity. And you start to, there's really some key setup moments between her and the homeless guy you see on the street and the way she interacts with other employees to show how sweet and loving she was, and how that slowly starts to come away once she gains the powers from the stone, which is what Diana calls back out to her and saying, like, what shows Diana isn't just saying what has happened to you. She then like riddles off, like, you used to do these things. These are the things that were made you you, and you've lost your way. You've lost these things. Really great conversation that happens between after a fight between the two. Hey, and this is the benefit of letting the antagonist and protagonist have a conversation, right? Again, I'm not trying to. I feel like this is going to turn an MCU bash. That's not what I mean. I don't know if we would have gotten that in our Marvel movie, where you have an opportunity to slow down for a second and they have this out. So it's like everyone here now understands what the stakes are between these two. So there's like, I left with no confusion about why they are split the different ways that they are. Which also sets up to Diana's choice to let Steve go and renounce her wish. So that's a mechanic that they introduced later in the movie, that the thing that's going to help, it's like Diana can't just destroy the stone because Maxwell Lord has become that stone. She doesn't really. One theme that's consistent throughout the entire movie is how little bloodshed she's trying to commit during the movie. So she is really she's trying to save everyone as much as possible. The movie goes out of its way. Most of the time, I'd say very well. There might be some moments there's like a tad force. Like there's a convoy chase scene where she goes to dive and pick up two kids. And again, I'm not knocking the heroic choice there. I'm just wondering about plot-wise in the movie, did that moment need to be there? But there's other great moments that stack up to show where Diana's priorities are on the field at every given moment. And I'd say kudos. But ultimately, she can't just take out Maxwell, and she knows she's going to need the world, because as he's granting wishes, the world is getting chaotic because these wishes do not work well together. They do not interact and mesh together. And it causes a ton of chaos. The world is going to shit. And it's set in the 80s, so this is still America versus the Russians, which comes to play. Is that storyline a little does that well a little run dry a bit, but the movie doesn't spend a lot of time and focus there. It's a part of the setting, so it's something that they use as a device later, but it's not like the critical, like it's still between Wonder Woman, Cheetah, and Lord. So it's still between those three. These are things that are the mechanics working in the background, but they never take the forefront. So yeah, that trope of the American versus Russians Cold War might be a little, I don't want to say outdated, but overused, but it doesn't really distract from it at all. And again, these wishes aren't working well. So they come down to understanding two choices. You could try to take out Maxwell, but that also starts to rub against who Diana is or who she's established herself to be in this movie. And she starts to lean towards like, Dad, that's what I'm going to do, because I'm not going to lose Steve. And they have the most heart-wrenching scene as they separate, and probably one of the best angry upset runs after that choice from Diana. I talked a little bit about performances, but again, that was just my general kind of like just calling out some of the highlights I enjoyed the most. Pedro's performance as Lord, like being the charismatic, not egomaniac, but charismatic, overdriven businessman, because he's not successful. He's lost sight of his way, and that's also a theme between Cheetah, Kristen Wiig's character, and Pedro as Lord. is that they've lost their ways in different ways, and that's what Diana is trying to do, is help them see that. So beating them into submission, while she does have to fight Cheetah because one of her wishes was to become be Diana, it ends up wanting to become stronger, become an apex predator, as you've seen in the trailers. That does require her to take her down, but she doesn't kill her. It's just, I'm going to knock you out. And again, I liked that the movie went out of its way to do that. And since we talk about losing their way, there's times where Steve is going to shoot at people, and she's like, it's not their fault, because she understands what the spell they're under effectively because of the stone. Which leads to the ending of the movie, and go back to the lesson that she got at the start about the truth is what's going to set you free. You don't want to live in a lie. And at its simplest moment, that's her realizing that she needs to let Steve go, and that this would never have been a life that you would have wanted to live. It was always going to be built on a lie, and you would not have been able to live with yourself from that. Because the tricky thing about Steve coming back is that he takes over another person's body to do it. So you've denied someone else their opportunity for life and autonomy so that you can have your happiness. So based on the lesson from the beginning of the movie, it was never going to work. And she comes to terms with this. And that's what she helps Lord come to terms with and the rest of the world. The one plot device that might be a bit of a stretch is the satellite system that's introduced that lets him communicate to the entire world at the same time, so he gets an opportunity to get more wishes that he can turn to benefit himself and basically cast off the consequences onto the other to the people asking for the wishes. And so that mechanic might be a bit and so it's a little, that the mechanic might be a little bad, but it works for what we needed to do in the movie, and it leads to a fantastic ending when she gets to she's been trying to get at him, get the lasso on him, and gets his guard down, gets him monologuing, get some classic Incredibles, you got me monologuing, you sly dog. And then she starts to monologue, and he thinks, oh, you're talking to me. There may not have been a better moment to use the phrase, I wasn't talking to you, because it worked so well in this moment. And it's such a cliche, but it worked so well in this moment because she had got the last, based on, when you watch the movie, you'll see how they're set up. Or if you've already seen it, you'll remember how the cameras and things are set up. So she's talking to the rest of the world that has started to give in to these wishes, and uses that renouncing mechanic to get everyone to let go of their wish. And then last person is Lord, and gets him to like reconcile with his son at the end. You know, so that was fantastic. That was great, and that's a resolution that didn't require her to beat the mess out of Lord. You know, at the end of the movie, we don't even see what happens to him. We don't see if they went to jail. They're not like brooding and waiting for their, like, these characters have a resolution. Now, what's that going to mean for future movies? I don't know. But I don't think we're going to see Lord come back and be like, you took everything away from me. It's like, no, he had resolution with his son, which is what he actually needed. He needed to know that he didn't have to live this lie for his son. We don't get that. I would have liked to seen some words from Cheetah at the end, but it's ultimately going to be okay that we didn't get that, because she had it out with Diana and has been stripped of that power. So again, would have liked to see a conversation there to wrap it, but it's not the end of the world. So just really clean, some really good resolutions there at the end. And then one thing we talked about, we got the invisible jet. Now we got Diana actually flying in this movie, which was also great. And I like that they got to use Steve, not necessarily as the instigator of that, but they got to have a conversation about flight, about what it means to him, what he thinks, his methodology on, or his MO when he's flying, what he thinks about, what drives him when he flies. And you can see her playing and experimenting with that after the angry run, and just a beautiful moment that's letting her play with her powers in a way she hasn't played with them before, or not, I don't want to say before, but kind of the same way that she's figuring things out, when she's got her bracers on and is figuring out the timing to deflect the bullets. There's a moment in the previous movie where she's getting an opportunity to see that and like, okay, I got this, and then when a no man's land, when they like, okay, bullets ain't working, so we're gonna go, or rifles aren't working, let's go to a machine gun. And the next step, like, bring the shield down to, like, there's a progression to how she learns her powers. This is very same way. It's like, I'm gonna learn how to, not that she set her mind out to fly at this moment, but that's what she starts to play with, is the idea that they talked about together. So it's just a really nice sign off from their time together in the movie. So the end credit scene with Linda Carter playing Asteria, super fun. Nice little egg there. And it doesn't lead to anything. Like, we don't have any. I'm glad that this is a movie that just gets to stand on its own, and the resolution that happened there at the end also just feels very satisfying. Like, I wasn't looking for anyone else to pop up in this movie to set something up for, like, gosh, I'm not, like, the next Shazam movie. I'm trying to think what else is getting ready to come out, and or the Suicide Squad. Didn't have any of that. So just kudos. I don't know how many times I have to say it. Just kudos. And I don't really have any gripes. There's the satellite mechanic is a little weird. There's a few spots CGI wise, but that's no different than any other superhero movie. So there's nothing that's like you're gonna like roll your eyes and be like, that's awful. I was like, no, it's very, very good. And even their last fight when she's in the Golden Eagle armor, it's a really great put together fight using the power station or wherever they're at. Very effectively between the two, and we get some underwater scenes, flying, not flying, but like flying past one another in the air. Like, it's really good, and they get to go blow to blow to start that one off. So super solid. And the 80s vibe, Patty leaned into that. Like, this has got to be. Aside from Shazam, which we just talked about on the show, it's got to be like the most vibrant DC movie ever. I think you'd have to go back to Batman and Robin to find another vibrant. And when you put this movie side to side of Wonder Woman, it's like a night and day color grade experience as well. Her suit pops off a whole lot more. Again, like we said, they lean into the 80s, so like the outfits and attire and everything that's going on. So as I've said before, I really love the Wonder Woman score, and they can just continue that tradition in this movie. It's not the exact same score that you're used to. Like, you are going to hear the classic Amazonian Issue with You theme from Hans Zimmer in the original Batman v Superman that was continued in Wonder Woman. And that's still here, but it's not the primary. It's like I don't want to say subdued, but we kind of get some kind of a horn feel into it. It just changes from the drum, like it's not as drum heavy, and it works really well for this film. Especially with all the running and the speed and quickness at which Diana is moving in this film. I also feel like that worked really well in its in the score's favor. Like, Hans Zimmer's back to do this one, so he really got to continue the tradition he made in the first in Batman v Superman and Wonder Woman, and continue it here and just really adapt it to this film. So hats off to you, sir. Hats off. So where would I rank this movie? I'm going to give it some time before I try to place it with the other DC movies, because we just did our rewatch. So even though those are fresh in my mind, I want to let Wonder Woman 1984 kind of sit in my brain for a bit before I make that proclamation. But I suspect it's going to be very high, and I would not be surprised if it beats the original Wonder Woman, just for me, because it did the thing at the end with the villain that I wanted the first movie to do. Because the first movie could definitely be a lesson in patience, failure, the complexity of man, and that you're not going to be able to win everything by just beating up the bad guy. And it's not until this movie that we actually get to see that happen. Because again, that stereotypical fight that happened at the end of Wonder Woman is the only reason I would knock that movie down a peg. That's it. That's really the only gripe I have with it, and they don't have that in this movie. So again, the satellite piece, not a big deal, but this is probably one of the only things I can really pick out of here. A few weird CGI moments. And the length, it's a little long in the tooth. Probably would have seen if we could cut this back down to like 2 minutes, 20 minutes. It gets up to 2 minutes and 34 minutes, which is getting closer to that 3 hour mark. And there is like a little drag right in between the setup for the last act. But other than that, I don't really want to pick anything on this because I enjoyed it so much. I just don't have anything to pick on this movie about. Not that I pick on movies anyway, but there's not a lot to throw. There's no mud to throw. There's no rocks to aim at it. So my score is going to be 9 out of 10. I haven't given out a 9. And if I think about it a little bit more, I might bump it up to 9.5. I enjoyed it that much. I know there's going to be people out there that are like, this movie's too preachy. And maybe it's 2020 that softened me up and made me ready for this movie, but I don't care. I think we need more of this. I think we need more, if Cap can sit there and spout off his values before he goes into a fight with Red Skull, and we don't roll our eyes at that, why are we doing the same thing when Diana does it? So honestly, that's where it falls and lands for me. That's why I enjoy it. She's backing up her words. She's learning as she goes, but she's backing up her words as a hero. And this movie, it's doing all its damnedest to back that up with the things that are happening in the plot. So yeah, I'm gonna give it 9 out of 10. I might bump that up to 9.5 when I give it a little more time and have another opportunity to rewatch. But those are my thoughts on Wonder Woman 1984. Make sure you tune in to the Commander Shipp Show this Wednesday at 8 p.m. Central, and me and Tom are going to get to talk about it and give our thoughts together. We'll go into more in-depth on some of the scenes that we enjoyed the most and break down what we thought worked and didn't work. But it's a damn good superhero movie, and it's a great way to close out the year. Let me know in the comments, and we can definitely talk about it on the Discord, on our Nerd Union Discord, or on the Facebook page. So definitely love to hear from you and get your thoughts. But yeah, Wonder Woman 1984, great. Hey, we'll see you next time.